I am sitting in my new studio apartment right now, staring at the wedding ring I finally took off last month. 3 years ago, I thought I had found the love of my life. I thought Harper and I would grow old together, build a family, maybe buy that house in the suburbs we always talked about. But one evening changed everything. One sentence spoken in front of her friends crossed every line I did not even know I had. What I did next left her completely speechless. Before I take you through what happened that night and how I finally stood up for myself, I need you to do something for me. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. I would love to hear your stories too. And if you want to see how this all plays out, hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Because what started as the most humiliating moment of my life became the turning point that saved it. Now let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Eli, and I am 30 years old. I work as a graphic designer for a mid-sized advertising agency here in Portland. It is not glamorous, but I love what I do. Creating visual stories, bringing ideas to life through design. It has always been my passion. I make about $60,000 a year, which is decent, but not remarkable. I have never been the flashy type. I am 5 feet 9 inches tall on the slimmer side, and I have always been more comfortable behind a sketchbook than in a boardroom. I met Harper 5 years ago at an art gallery opening downtown. She was standing in front of one of my pieces, a digital illustration I had entered in a local competition. When she turned around and told me how much the colors spoke to her, I felt something shift inside me. Harper was 24, then working in marketing for a small tech startup. She was confident, energetic, tall, and carried herself like she owned every room she walked into. We started talking that night and did not stop for hours. Our early relationship felt like a dream. Harper loved my sensitivity, my artistic eye, the way I noticed small details others missed. I loved her ambition, her drive, the way she pushed me to see possibilities I had not considered. We dated for a year and a half before getting married in a small ceremony with close family and friends. Those first 2 years of marriage were genuinely happy. We cooked together on weekends, went hiking in the Columbia River Gorge, spent lazy Sunday mornings watching old films and drinking coffee. Harper used to tell me I was her safe place. She would come home stressed from work, and I would make her favorite pasta dish, pour her a glass of wine, and just listen. She said I was the most thoughtful person she had ever met. I believed her completely. We talked about buying a house, about having kids someday. I worked extra hours on freelance projects, building our savings account. I trusted her with everything I had. Then about 6 months ago, everything started to shift. Harper got promoted to marketing director at her company. It was a huge leap. Her salary almost doubled, jumping to around $120,000 a year. I was genuinely proud of her. I took her out to dinner to celebrate, told her how much she deserved it. But with the promotion came a new circle of friends. Colleagues who made 6 figures, drove luxury cars, vacationed in Europe twice a year. Women whose husbands were lawyers, doctors, tech executives. At first, the changes were subtle. Harper started spending Friday nights out with her new work friends instead of at home with me. She would come back late, a little tipsy, talking about the expensive restaurant they had tried or the wine bar they had discovered. I told myself it was normal. She was adjusting to a new role, networking, building relationships. I wanted to be supportive. But then the comments started. Small things at first. "Maybe you should ask for a raise," she said one morning while scrolling through her phone. "My team members all make 6 figures. It seems like you have been at the same level for a while." Another time, while I was getting a second helping of dinner, she looked at me and said, "Do you really need that? You have put on a few pounds." I felt a sting but brushed it off. Maybe she was just stressed. I kept telling myself that Harper was just adapting to her new position. The pressure was getting to her. She would come around, so I did what I always did. I tried harder. I went to the gym 5 days a week, pushing myself to build muscle I had never had. I took on extra freelance projects, trying to boost our income. I planned surprise date nights, cooked her favorite meals, bought her small gifts just to see her smile. But nothing I did seemed to be enough. The criticism only intensified. Harper started comparing me to her friends' husbands openly. Jessica's husband just bought her a Tesla, she mentioned one evening while we were getting ready for bed. When are you getting promoted? Another time she sighed while looking at her phone and said, David takes Amanda to Europe every summer. We have not been anywhere in 2 years. Each comment felt like a small cut, and they were adding up. She started making remarks about my appearance too. You are shrinking while I am growing, she said once, looking me up and down, literally and figuratively. She would point out how her friends' husbands were all over 6 feet tall, how they had that executive presence. What do I even say when they ask what you do, she asked one day. That you make graphics for advertisements. It sounds so small. I kept trying to fix things. I researched career development courses, thinking maybe I could pivot into a higher-paying field. I bought new clothes hoping to look more professional. I scheduled a meeting with my boss to discuss growth opportunities. But at home, Harper grew more distant. She spent most weekends with her new friend group. Our bedroom became a cold, silent space. I felt like I was living with a stranger who looked like my wife, but no longer saw me at all. Her friend group consisted of 4 women, all successful in their own right. Jessica was a VP at a financial firm married to a corporate lawyer. Amanda was a senior manager at a consulting company, her husband a cardiologist. Lauren worked in tech. Her husband owned a software startup. Kara managed luxury retail accounts. Her husband owned a chain of upscale restaurants. They all lived in expensive neighborhoods, drove cars that cost more than my annual salary, and seemed to spend their time competing over who had the most enviable lifestyle. I could see how being around them affected Harper. She would come home from their brunches or shopping trips, looking dissatisfied with everything we had. Our modest apartment felt smaller. My reliable but ordinary sedan felt embarrassing. Our weekend hikes felt boring compared to their ski trips to Aspen or beach vacations in the Maldives. Harper started looking at me with something that felt like shame. Then one Tuesday evening, Harper came home and announced that she was inviting her friend group over for dinner that Friday. I want you to cook, she said, not looking up from her phone. At least, show them you are useful for something. The words hit me like a slap, but I swallowed the hurt. Maybe if I impressed them, Harper would remember why she fell for me in the first place. Maybe she would see my value again. I spent all of Friday preparing. I took the day off work. Went to 3 different grocery stores to get the perfect ingredients. I planned a full menu homemade bruschetta with fresh tomatoes and basil, for the appetizer braised short ribs with creamy mashed potatoes, and roasted seasonal vegetables for the main course, and tiramisu for dessert. I cleaned the apartment until it sparkled, arranged fresh flowers on the table, selected a playlist of soft jazz for background music. The women arrived at 6 o'clock. They walked in wearing designer dresses, carrying expensive handbags, their jewelry catching the light. They barely acknowledged me, offering quick nods before Harper ushered them into the living room. I could hear them settling in, their voices bright and animated, as they talked about an upcoming charity gala, a new boutique hotel, opening the latest restaurant reservation that took months to secure. I stayed in the kitchen finishing the meal. When I brought out the appetizers, they were deep in conversation about vacation homes and investment properties. I set the bruschetta platter on the coffee table, and Jessica glanced up. "Oh, thank you," she said absently. Harper did not introduce me properly, just gestured vaguely in my direction, and said, "This is Eli. He made dinner." I felt invisible, like hired help, rather than the host of my own home. I retreated to the kitchen, plated the main course with care, making sure each dish looked restaurant quality. My hands were steady, but my chest felt tight. I could hear their laughter from the other room, the clinking of wine glasses. When I brought out the entree, they had moved on to discussing their husbands' recent accomplishments, promotions, bonuses, luxury purchases. I set the plates down carefully, and for a moment there was silence as they looked at the food. Jessica took a bite of the short ribs, and her eyes widened slightly. "This is actually really good," she said, looking at me with genuine surprise. "You are a talented cook, Eli." For the first time that evening, I felt a small warmth in my chest. A simple compliment, but it felt like being seen after hours of invisibility. Harper took a long sip of her wine, then let out a short laugh. The sound was sharp, almost cruel, I looked at her confused. She set her glass down and turned to her friends with a smirk I had never seen before. "Well, at least he is good at something," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Though I would call it a tiny performance from a tiny man. The room went silent. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the space. I stood frozen in the doorway between the kitchen and dining area, a serving spoon still in my hand. Harper continued oblivious to the shifting atmosphere, or perhaps enjoying it. "I mean, look at him," she said, gesturing toward me with her wine glass. "Everything about him is small. Small paycheck, small ambitions, small." She trailed off with a meaningful pause and a raised eyebrow, the implication hanging in the air. A few of the women laughed uncomfortably. Amanda looked down at her plate. Lauren shifted in her seat, but no one said anything to stop it. No one defended me. Harper just kept smiling, taking another sip of wine like she had just told a harmless joke. My face burned. My ears started ringing. I felt my hands trembling, and I carefully set the serving spoon down on the kitchen counter before I dropped it. Time seemed to stretch impossibly long. I looked at Harper, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. Someone who could humiliate her husband in front of guests and feel nothing. Someone who had been chipping away at me for months, and I had let it happen because I kept hoping the woman I married was still in there somewhere. I did not yell. I did not throw anything or make a scene. I simply said very quietly, "Excuse me," and walked upstairs to our bedroom. Behind me, I heard the conversation resume after a brief pause, their voices picking up again, as if nothing significant had happened. As if they had not just witnessed someone being torn down in their own home. I sat on the edge of our bed staring at the wall. My whole body felt numb and burning at the same time. I could hear the muffled sounds of conversation and laughter from downstairs. They were still eating the food I had spent all day preparing, still drinking the wine I had carefully selected, still sitting in my home like I had not just been publicly degraded. For the first time, I let myself really see the last 6 months clearly. Every dismissive comment, every comparison, every moment Harper had made me feel less than. This was not a rough patch. This was not stress from a new job. This was who she had become, or maybe who she always was underneath, and I had been too in love to notice. I thought about what I had sacrificed: my self-respect, my friendships that faded because Harper did not like them, my hobbies that she found boring pieces of myself. I had shaved away trying to become whatever she wanted. I looked at myself in the mirror across from the bed. I saw a tired man, worn down, smaller somehow than I used to be. Not physically, but in spirit. I barely recognized myself. Around 10 o'clock, I heard cars starting outside. The women were leaving. Their voices carried up through the window bright goodbyes and see you soons. Then I heard Harper coming up the stairs. She pushed open the bedroom door, slightly unsteady from wine. "Why did you disappear?" she demanded. "You embarrassed me in front of my friends." I stared at her. She thought I had embarrassed her. "God, you are so sensitive," she continued, kicking off her heels. "It was just a joke, Eli. Learn to take a joke." I did not respond. There was nothing to say that she would understand. Harper rolled her eyes, muttered something under her breath, and went into the bathroom. I heard the water running her nighttime routine. 20 minutes later, she climbed into bed and fell asleep, almost immediately, her breathing deep and unbothered. I did not sleep at all that night. I lay there in the dark, listening to Harper breathe, and something crystallized inside me. I realized that she did not love me anymore. Maybe she loved the idea of being married, of having a husband, but she did not love or respect who I actually was. And more importantly, I realized that I had been complicit in my own diminishment. I had accepted treatment I should have rejected months ago. By the time the sun started to rise, I had made my decision. I could not live like this anymore. I would not. When Harper woke up Saturday morning, I was already downstairs with coffee made. She came into the kitchen, yawning, checking her phone. "What is for breakfast?" she asked without looking up. "We need to talk," I said. She glanced at me, annoyed. "Can it wait? I have a headache." "No," I said. "It cannot wait." Something in my tone made her put down her phone. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. the same table where we used to share lazy weekend mornings. That felt like a lifetime ago. What you said last night was unacceptable. I began keeping my voice level. It was not a joke. It was public humiliation. You disrespected me in my own home in front of people, and I will not pretend it did not happen. Harper sighed dramatically. You are overreacting. Everyone was laughing. It was funny. It was not funny to me, I said. And if you cannot see why that is a bigger problem than I thought, I need a genuine apology, and I think we should start marriage counseling immediately. She looked at me like I had suggested we move to Mars. Counseling for what? Because I made one little comment, and you got your feelings hurt. It was not one comment, Harper. It has been 6 months of you tearing me down piece by piece. The comparisons, the criticisms making me feel worthless. I have been trying to meet standards, you keep moving further away. I am done. Her face changed then. First confusion, then irritation. You are always so sensitive, she said. I cannot say anything around you anymore, without you taking it personally. When you attack who I am as a person, yes, I take it personally, I replied. That is what normal people do. She stood up, crossing her arms. Fine, I am sorry. Happy now. Can we move on? But her voice had no sincerity in it. Her eyes held no understanding. She was just saying words to end an uncomfortable conversation. That is when I knew. I am moving into the guest room, I said. We are separating our finances. I need time to think seriously about whether this marriage can continue. Harper's face went pale. Are you threatening me with divorce? I am telling you that I will not accept being disrespected anymore. What happens next depends on whether you can actually understand why what you did was wrong and make real changes. But I am not holding my breath. That afternoon, while Harper went out, I opened a new bank account and transferred half of our savings into it. I had consulted with a lawyer the day before, during my lunch break, just a free initial consultation, but it gave me the information I needed. I moved my clothes and personal items into the guest room. I downloaded all our financial documents onto a secure drive. Harper did not believe I was serious at first. For the first week, she acted like everything was normal, like I would eventually come back to our bedroom and forget the whole thing. But when I did not budge, I saw her confidence start to crack. By the second week, she tried apologizing again, but still could not articulate what she was actually sorry for. She thought saying the words was enough, without any comprehension of the damage she had done. I started focusing on myself in ways I had not in years. I reached out to old friends I had drifted away from because Harper found them boring. I signed up for an evening painting class, reconnecting with the art I had abandoned when it stopped impressing her. I went to the gym not to meet her standards, but because it made me feel strong. I took on additional freelance projects, and my income started to increase. By the third week, I found a studio apartment across town, small but bright with big windows and exposed brick. It felt like mine, in a way our shared space had not felt in months. When Harper saw me looking at the lease agreement, real panic set in. You are really doing this? She asked, her voice shaking. Yes, I said simply, but I said I was sorry. What more do you want? I want a partner who respects me, who sees my value, who would never dream of humiliating me for a laugh. You have shown me over and over that you are not that person anymore. She tried everything then. Tears, promises to change, reminders of our history together. But I had spent too many nights thinking, too many hours, realizing that the foundation of our marriage had eroded beyond repair. Trust, once broken this completely, does not just come back because someone finally realizes they might lose something. The following Saturday, I signed the lease and started packing. Harper stood in the doorway of the guest room watching me fold clothes into boxes. Please do not do this, she said, and for the first time she sounded genuinely desperate. I love you. I will change. I promise. I stopped packing and looked at her directly. You loved the idea of me, the safe, steady guy who would always be there no matter how you treated him. But you never respected who I actually am. You spent 6 months trying to remake me into something I am not. And when I would not change, you tried to make me feel ashamed of myself. That is not love, Harper. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. For the first time since that awful dinner party, she had no words. She just stood there speechless, finally understanding that she had lost something she could not get back. I finished packing in silence. As I carried the last box to my car, Harper followed me outside. "This is really it?" she asked quietly. "This is really it," I confirmed. I drove away without looking back. The first few months in my new place were hard, I will not lie. There were lonely Friday nights when I questioned whether I had overreacted. Moments when I missed the good parts of our relationship so intensely it physically hurt. Every time doubt crept in, though, I would remember that moment at the dinner table. The look on her face when she said those words. The laughter of her friends. The complete absence of any care for how it made me feel. My friends rallied around me. My buddy Marcus, who I had not seen in months because Harper always found excuses why we could not hang out, took me to basketball games and just let me talk. My college friend Sophie invited me to gallery openings and reminded me what it felt like to be around someone who appreciated my perspective. Slowly, painfully, I started feeling like myself again. I threw myself into my art. The painting class turned into a small exhibition at a local coffee shop. Nothing major, just 10 pieces, but people came. They looked at my work and saw something in it. One piece even sold. I remembered what it felt like to create something meaningful, not to impress anyone but because it needed to exist. Work improved too. With my head clearer, I pitched a new campaign concept that landed us a significant client. My boss noticed. 3 months after I moved out, I got promoted to senior designer with a 20% raise. Nothing close to Harper's salary, but it did not matter anymore. I was not measuring my worth by her standards. The divorce was finalized 4 months after I moved out. We split our assets fairly. Since we had no children and had kept our finances relatively separate, it was straightforward. I signed the papers in a lawyer's office on a Tuesday afternoon. Walking out into the bright autumn sun, I felt lighter than I had in a year. I learned things about myself I wish I had known sooner. I learned that love without respect is just another word for tolerating mistreatment. I learned that people will treat you the way you allow them to, and teaching someone your boundaries is not cruelty but necessity. I learned that walking away does not mean you failed. Sometimes it means you finally valued yourself enough to stop accepting less than you deserve. I do not hate Harper. Honestly, I feel sad about the whole thing. Sad for what we lost. Sad that she could not see what she had until it was gone. Sad that she prioritized appearances over authenticity. I hope she learned something from our ending. I hope she treats her next partner better. But that is not my responsibility anymore. 6 months after moving out, I am doing better than I thought possible. I have my art, my friends, a job I am good at, and most importantly, I have my self-respect back. I am dating casually. Nothing serious yet, but I am meeting people who see me as enough exactly as I am. I am learning what healthy relationships look like. I am discovering that I actually like myself when I am not constantly trying to be someone else's idea of acceptable. Sometimes the smallest voice you ignore is your own, and sometimes walking away is the biggest thing you will ever do. Not for revenge, not to prove a point, but because you finally realized you deserve better than being made to feel small, because you understood that your worth is not determined by someone else's inability to see it, because you chose yourself when no one else would. If you have ever been in a relationship where you felt diminished, where you kept shrinking yourself to fit someone else's expectations, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below telling me your story or what you would have done in my situation. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because they could not respect you? Hit that like button if this story resonated with you, and subscribe because I will be sharing more about my journey of rebuilding and the lessons I am still learning. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there recognize their own worth before they lose themselves completely. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel bigger, not smaller. Someone who celebrates you, not humiliates you. And if you are not there yet, I promise you, It is possible to find your way back to yourself. Take care of yourselves out there. You are worth more than you know.